Now, you know I'm spoiling you guys. Starting with last Wednesday, this is going to be my 5th video. I've always said anytime I do 3 or more videos in a 7-day period, that means I'm spoiling you guys. So I'm spoiling you guys. But it's probably good that I'm spoiling you now because I think I gave you guys a warning about 2 or 3 months ago. In September, I'm going to be off the grid, off of YouTube. I'll still be doing some Patreon content, but in September, I won't be on YouTube at all. Yeah, this will be another one of my infamous sabbaticals. This will be another one of my infamous sabbaticals. Yeah, I won't be on YouTube at all in the month of September, primarily because that's my wife is due to give birth to my first child and my first son next month, around mid-September. So I'm going to be preparing for the birth of my child. And yeah, I can already tell you, 99.99999% chance I will not do any YouTube videos in the month of September. So the last YouTube video I'll do will probably be the last weekend of this month, which will probably be either the 28th, 29th, 30th, or 31st. 28th is on a Friday, 29th is on a Saturday, 30th is on a Sunday, and 31st is on a Monday. It'll be one of those 4 days will probably be my last YouTube video until October. Okay, the reason I'm doing a video, I'm basically going to be responding to a few things, feedback I got in response to the video I did just yesterday. Where I talked about the influence of John Leslie in the movie Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2, as well as my ongoing beef with the dating coach, or I should say now he doesn't call himself a dating coach. Now he calls himself just simply a self-improvement coach. A self-improvement coach / life coach. Yeah, he no longer refers to himself as a dating coach, even though he still gives some dating advice, but he mainly now refers to himself as a self-improvement coach and life coach. And that, of course, is Feliciano T. Collins, otherwise known by his pseudonym, Alpha Male Strategies, AMS. So some guys gave me feedback in respect to him and my beef with him, and couple guys gave me some feedback in respect to John Leslie in the movies Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2. Okay, let's I'm going to go ahead and start with your boy. Well, first of all, I always like to mention, I've mentioned a number of times that I got about 335 Patreon subscribers, about roughly 335 pages, excuse me. I got about roughly 335 Patreon subscribers. And I'd say roughly 100 of those are guys who used to follow AMS. Well, add on 2 more. Yeah, I had about what? I think I had 5 Skype consultations today with different clients, different Patreon subscribers, and 2 of the 5 guys I had consultations with today were guys, it was my first time doing a consultation with them. And whenever it's my first time, I always ask guys, how did they hear about me? Did they hear about me from YouTube? Did they hear about me from just buying my books on Amazon or my audiobooks on Audible? Did they hear about me from out in the streets? I always like to know how people heard about me. And so over half the time I ask that question, guys will start smiling or they'll start chuckling. Anytime they start smiling or chuckling or laughing or something like that, I know they're usually about to tell me that they used to follow AMS. Yeah, anytime they say something like, well, and they'll start either smiling, smirking, laughing, chuckling. That's when I usually know they're about to tell me they used to follow AMS. And sure enough, well, actually, today, with both of my consultation clients, it was two guys they followed before me. One client said he used to follow Lucario and AMS, even though those two really don't get along with each other. But that's interesting. He followed both of them. But yeah, he said he used to follow Lucario and AMS. Now, he actually said Lucario gives me a lot of props. And I've heard that before. Yeah, he said, man, I don't know if you know, but he said Lucario gives you a lot of enthusiastic shout-outs. He said he always gives you big ups. Yeah, I've always, respected Lucario. Me and him, I don't think have ever had beef with one another. And one reason we've never had beef because he's always given me, showing me a lot of love and respect. But that's what this client said. He said Lucario always spoke highly of you and always gave you shout outs and would recommend that he would say, you guys need to check out Alan Roger Currie's books and read them. So he said he followed Lucario, and he said he followed AMS. Now he did say, he said, I never heard AMS say anything bad about you. But he said on the flip side, he said, I never particularly heard him say anything good about you either. He said, most of the time I listened to him, he just really didn't mention you at all. He said, I didn't hear him speak negatively about you, but he didn't speak positively about you either. You just really weren't mentioned by him. And then my second new client I talked to today, he also used to follow two guys. He followed Stefan Clinkscales, a.k.a. Stephis Cole, and he followed AMS. And now, interesting enough, the second guy did say, he said both of them mentioned me. It kind of surprised me about Stephis Cole because, man, Stephis Cole, we haven't had major beef with each other, but we've had minor beef with each other because he's lifted some of my talking points from my book, The Possibility of Sex. But this client I had, he said, actually, Alan, he said Stephis Cole actually recommended you in at least one of his videos. And I said, really? He said, yeah, he had one video where he told his guys, he said, I really don't believe in cold approaching. I more so believe in waiting till a woman gives me choosing signals before I approach the woman. But he said, if you want to learn, though, about cold approaching and the direct approach, you need to check out Alan Roger Currie. He said, Stephis Cole Stephis Cole told his listeners, Alan Roger Currie is the king of the cold approach and the direct approach. So if you want to learn more about those things, you need to check out Alan Roger Currie. And I was actually surprised. I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He said, yeah, Stephis Cole, he gave you a shout out at least once. And he said, what did he say about AMS? He said AMS is interesting. He said the same thing about AMS that you heard me say. Remember I did a recent video and I was talking about the overall intelligence level of our respective followers. I basically said AMS might have more followers than me in terms of quantity. He might have more YouTube subscribers than me and more Patreon supporters than me. But I said, if you were to evaluate the overall collective level of intelligence of his followers versus my followers, I said it's no contest. And actually, this client I had, that's what he said. He said that's at least half of what turned him off about AMS was not so much AMS himself, although he did mention that AMS tends to contradict himself a lot. Well, that's the one criticism he did have of AMS. What have I always said? Well, that's always been one of my criticisms of AMS. Yeah, he said AMS would contradict himself a lot. He would give one piece of advice, and then a few days or a few weeks later, he would say something that was contradictory to the advice he gave earlier. He said that was frustrating to him. And secondly, he said he didn't like AMS followers. He said, man, you could tell that most of AMS followers are like guys who are either still in high school or just graduated from high school. And he said they just seem like they're just not that intelligent. They seem like they have a very basic level of intelligence. He said, like, Alan, I pay attention to your followers. He said, your followers, most of your followers are very intelligent. Didn't I say that? I just said that about 2-3 weeks ago. I said, if I say so myself, the vast majority of my followers are guys who are very intelligent, very mature, very objective-minded, and in many cases, college-educated. I said they are very intelligent, mature, objective-minded, and in many cases, college-educated. And that's basically what this client of mine said today. He said, yeah, Alan, man, I check out a lot of your videos. He said, when you read the comment section of your videos, he said the stuff your followers write is totally different from like AMS files. He said like in AMS files videos, it'll just be stuff like, hey, awesome video, bro. For real. Awesome. Awesome content, bro. Awesome. AMS is God. Awesome, bro. Awesome. Yeah. AMS is God, bro. I'm exaggerating a bit, but that's essentially, yeah, but man, you always find intelligent people in my comment section. So anyway, it was interesting these two clients mentioned their names. Now, one more thing on AMS. I asked some guys, see, I don't know, I've said before, sometimes I don't know who gets on my nerves more, AMS himself or his fanatical followers. I don't know who irritates me more. Is AMS himself or his followers? Probably the general answer will probably be both. But in this case, for what I'm about to talk about, this is more directed at AMS followers than AMS himself. But yeah, definitely over the last week and maybe even over the last 2 weeks or so, I've had some of his followers coming to my comment section, even though 95% of the comments I end up deleting. But some of them were writing this comment along the lines of, Alan, just admit it, man. You're jealous of Alpha Male Strategies because he's pretty much like a celebrity now. He's a celebrity now. He's left you in the dust in terms of popularity and notoriety. He's like a celebrity now, and you're like a nobody. And I think that's why you're jealous. I had probably about, not too many, I'd say about 5, 6, maybe 7 guys wrote comments like that to me, talking about, I'm jealous of AMS popularity and notoriety, and that he's blowing up right now. And some people said he either already has become more or less a celebrity, or he's on the verge of becoming a celebrity. And I'm jealous because I've never experienced that type of, celebrity status. Insert dog face here. Really? Now, for my followers, see, this is why you got to become a Patreon subscriber, man. Because, see, on my Patreon videos, I don't do no ball rubbing. I don't do any egotistical, boastful what's known as ball rubbing. I don't do that. On my YouTube videos, yes, I do. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged. Patreon exclusive videos, I don't do what's known as egotistical and or boastful ball rubbing. But right now, I'm just going to warn you, I'm about to do at least a few minutes of ball rubbing. And again, I'm not really attacking AMS himself because AMS didn't say none of this stuff himself. This was his followers saying this. So this is more against his followers than he himself. But, bruh, what line have you heard in many rap songs? You hear lines such as, y'all better recognize, y'all better put some respect on my name. Matter of fact, the NBA player Dame Lillard, I don't know if y'all NBA fans, but at the end of his game yesterday, he said that. He said, y'all better put some respect on my name. Who was that rapper? Birdman? Who said that? Birdman said that. Y'all better put some respect on my name. And y'all better recognize who I am. Bruh, let me clue you in for you knucklehead followers making these comments about me supposedly being jealous of AMS's rising fame and popularity and notoriety. What has he done that I haven't done already? What has AMS done that I haven't done already that would genuinely make me jealous in the category of fame / popularity / notoriety? Let me lay it out to you fanatical AMS fans. Well, that was kind of redundant because a fanatical follower is the same thing as a fan. That's where the word fan comes from. A fanatical follower, fanatical supporter, that's a fan. So I said a fanatical fan. That's redundant. I catch myself like that sometimes. Bruh. See, y'all, some of you young people, y'all think YouTube represents the whole entire world. Y'all think the whole entire world pays attention to YouTube. Let me let you know, they don't. In other words, there's a difference between being YouTube famous and non-YouTube or mainstream famous. There's a difference between being YouTube famous and having popularity and notoriety that stretches beyond the realm of YouTube. Now, strictly within the world of YouTube, I'll give it to AMS. I've given it to him before. He has more YouTube subscribers than me, and he has more Patreon financial supporters than I do. So when it comes to those two things, he has me beat. I've never denied that. When it comes to YouTube subscribers combined with financial supporters on Patreon, yeah, AMS got me beat by a mile. So I don't try to argue that or debate that. But if you're trying to measure mainstream type popularity and notoriety, his mainstream versus mine, he ain't nowhere near on my level. I've been on national TV 5 times. 5 fucking times. Oprah Winfrey, Phil Donahue, Steve Harvey, Jay Leno, The Morning Show with Mike and Juliet. 5 fucking times. How many times AMS has been on national television? I'm waiting. How many times has he been on national television? How many celebrities own his books? I'm not going to, drop a bunch of names, although I might drop a couple. But there's Hollywood celebrities who own one or more of my books. I've actually had Hollywood actors as clients of mine. And I've had Hollywood celebrities who own my book. Probably the most notable name I will drop is Jon Favreau, who's in the Marvel movies, plays Happy in the Iron Man movies, Spider-Man movies. He's a well-known writer, director, and actor in Hollywood. He owns my book. Jeremy Piven used to be on Entourage, owns my book. What's the comic book guy who wrote Clerks? Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith owns my book. There's a number of celebrities. I mentioned it a number of times before. Like, I remember one time me and Tariq Nasheed had a conversation on PUA Hate, and Tariq Nasheed was telling me that. He was actually admonishing me for going back and forth with my haters and critics on PUA Hate. And he was like, man, you shouldn't take time to go back and forth with these haters and critics. Alan, he said, what are you doing? And I was like, yeah, I know. And anyway, while we were talking, exchanging messages, he said, man, He said, you big time, man. He said, man, I know Hollywood, like rappers and other Hollywood celebrities that be talking about your books, man. And I was actually kind of surprised at the time. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah. He said, man, a lot of Hollywood celebrities know who you are and are familiar with your books. Yeah, man. I've been interviewed by major newspapers, magazines. My name has been in magazines, Black Enterprise magazine. I've been in Essence magazine before. I've been interviewed by a number of broadcast radio stations, nationally syndicated radio shows. AMS ain't on that level. Name one national television appearance he's had. Name one broadcast, nationally syndicated broadcast radio show he's been on. Name a major newspaper interview he's conducted with somebody, or a major magazine interview he's conducted with somebody. So don't get it twisted. Don't even act like again, AMS is bigger than me here on YouTube. I'll give him that. Specifically here on YouTube, yes, he is bigger than me. He is. You can say he is more popular than me here on YouTube. But if we're talking about notoriety and popularity away from YouTube, oh, hell no. His books don't outsell mine. Facts. He's not known by any major Hollywood celebrities that I know of. He ain't got no mainstream media type press from anybody. Like people talking about, yeah, AMS going to be speaking at the 21 convention. I was the first African-American male to speak at the 21 convention, drops mic. So that don't impress me. So y'all need to shut up with that noise. Don't ever compare his notoriety to mine away from YouTube, ever. That's like insulting to my ego. It ain't, I'll say this and then I'll shut up about this. It ain't a black male on YouTube that's associated with the manosphere that has more notoriety than me away from YouTube. Now, here specifically on YouTube, yeah, there's a few guys that have more Patreon subscribers, Patreon supporters than I do, and or YouTube subscribers than I do. But if you're talking about mainstream type popularity, meaning that they've been interviewed either on national television, they've been interviewed on a nationally syndicated broadcast radio show, they've been interviewed by at least one major newspaper and or at least one major magazine, nationally known magazine, who can fuck with me here on YouTube other than Tommy Sotomayor and Tariq Nasheed? That's the only two black men I can think of off the top of my head who I would say whose notoriety away from YouTube exceeds mine, would be Tariq Nasheed and Tommy Sotomayor. Other than that, write in my comment section who you think their notoriety exceeds mine beyond the realm of YouTube. I would say nobody. Particularly if you're talking about somebody that's either directly or indirectly associated with the manosphere, it ain't nobody who can fade me on YouTube. Again, I've been on national television 5 times. I've been in 2 major magazines. I've been in at least 2 major newspapers. And I've been on at least 5 or 6 nationally syndicated broadcast radio shows. Fuck are you talking about? As that young brother Grinch say, fuck is you saying? He cracks me up when he says that. Fuck is you saying? Fuck is you saying? Fuck is you saying? Man, ain't nobody can fade me on YouTube, man. Again, man. Dude, I've been at Hollywood celebrity parties, man. I've had phone sex with female celebrities. Can Alpha Male Strategy say that? I've been in bed with Hollywood female celebrities. At least a couple of them. Can your boy say that? Dude. Matter of fact, I talked about this last year one time. A frat brother man who lives in Los Angeles, he was criticized. He said, Alan, he said, why you be beefing with these dudes that I never heard of beyond, that don't have any notoriety beyond YouTube? He said, man, beyond YouTube, man, nobody know these niggas you be beefing with, man. Nobody never heard of these niggas. That's what the front brother man said. He said, man, no, beyond YouTube, he said, nobody know who these niggas you are that you be beefing with. He said, man, there's people in Hollywood who know who you fuck you are, man. These people you be beefing with, man, don't nobody in Hollywood know who the fuck these dudes are. But yeah, yeah, man, again, this is not so much me going after AMS himself, because AMS didn't brag about his notoriety. It was some of his fans were bragging about his growing notoriety and trying to suggest that he has way more notoriety than I do. No, he doesn't. Again, he has way more notoriety than I do, specifically here on YouTube. But among the world of national television interviews, magazine interviews, newspaper interviews, broadcast radio interviews, AMS can't touch me. AMS ain't nowhere near on my level. Ain't nowhere near on my level. It ain't nobody in. Like I said, it ain't nobody, no black male that I'm familiar with on YouTube that has greater notoriety than me beyond the realm of YouTube, other than the only two I could think of would be Tariq Nasheed does and Tommy Sotomayor. That's the only two black males that I'm familiar with on YouTube that I would say who have greater notoriety than me beyond the realm of YouTube. But other than that, ain't nobody can fade me. Ain't nobody can fade me. Facts. And the final thing I'm going to talk about is some guys asked me just a couple of brief questions related to, I started off my video yesterday talking about John Leslie. One person was kind of shocked. I couldn't tell if this person was, because I didn't see a picture of this person, so I don't know if they're black or white, or it could be Hispanic or Asian, but this person said they were shocked. They said, Alan, I don't want to sound like I'm stereotyping black men, but I thought that all black men learned game from other black men. He said, but it sounded like you were saying on the video that you learned game from a white dude, John Leslie. And he said, I don't know why, but I almost find that shocking, because I just assumed that when it came to black men, all black men learn game from other black men, because there's even white guys who want to learn game from black men, as well as Asian guys and Hispanic guys and Middle Eastern guys who want to learn game from black men. But you, interesting enough, you say you learn game from a white dude. He said, I find it interesting. And again, the person who wrote me this, I don't know if they were black. I couldn't tell by the name. I couldn't tell if they were black, Caucasian, or otherwise. But anyway, but yeah, man, I mean, I don't know why that's so shocking. I mean, number one, I've mentioned it a number of times before. But yeah, I didn't. I didn't learn direct verbal game from any other black man. Because again, when I was coming up, I didn't know any black men who used direct verbal game with women. Real talk, I didn't. I didn't know any black men. Now, maybe younger guys might have saw a lot of other guys use direct game, probably because of my influence. But when I was growing up, I was in high school in the late 70s, very early 80s, and then I was in college in the early to mid 80s. Nobody was using direct verbal game to get women to have casual sex with them. I mean, literally, like nobody I knew. Like, you take me, for example. When I was in high school, and I mentioned this a number of times before, pretty much every woman that I had casual sex with was women that just threw the pussy at me. I didn't really pursue them or use any verbal game with them, direct or indirect. It was basically women would tell me that they thought I was handsome, that they thought I was sexy, and they would just they would let it be known that I could get the pussy. That's how I got all my casual sex in high school, was women would just let me know that they found me attractive, they found me sexually appealing, and they would let me know in one way or another that I could hit it. But the main ways that guys got women in bed, I've repeated all this before, but I'll repeat again. When I was coming up, like say high school / college, the main ways guys scored casual sex when I was coming up was either by, well, what I already said was either they waited for a woman to basically throw pussy at them and they just took it, what I call mode zero. That would be what I call mode zero. Is, yeah, they just had a woman basically throw the pussy at them and they took it. That was probably number one. Number two, they would use some form of mode 3 pump and dump, which would mean they would lie to a woman, make a woman believe that they wanted to be that woman's next long-term boyfriend, but then once they got the pussy, they would just dump her and go ghost on her. Yeah, I call that mode 3 pump and dump. That was probably the second most frequent method. Third would be some variation of mode 2 pump and dump. Mode 2 pump and dump would be when you don't flat out lie to women, but you don't make it specifically clear that you're just looking for casual sex. Like, say you meet a woman, you invite her over your crib, and then you just start making physical moves on her, and she responds to those moves, y'all start making out, next thing you know, y'all fucking. But you never specifically told her ahead of time that you were just looking for casual sex. You just kind of let things happen. Yeah, I call that mode 2 pump and dump. That was probably the third most frequent method of getting women to have casual sex. And then the fourth was either getting a woman drunk, high, or both. Getting a woman drunk, high, or both. That was the four main ways that guys scored casual sex when I was coming up. Again, was either waiting for a woman to just throw some pussy at them, and basically waiting for the woman to make the first move. Number two was some form of mode 3 pump and dump, where they blatantly lied to the woman and misled her and emotionally manipulated her. Mode 2 pump and dump, where they didn't lie to the woman, but they didn't make it specifically clear that all they wanted from them was casual sex. Or they got that woman drunk and or high and then just took advantage of her, which is now considered date rape. Back in the day, that shit was legal. But in today's society, method number 4, that's considered date rape. Yeah, that's considered date rape. You can't get away with that shit now. You can't get a woman drunk or high and then fuck her while she's not sober. That woman could easily accuse you of date rape. So that was the 4-way. But I didn't know any guy when I was in my late teens, early 20s, that would just walk up to a woman that he didn't know, and within the first 3 to 5 minutes of his very first conversation, just straight up tell that woman, hey, I think you're attractive and sexy, and I want to fuck the shit out of you. And in addition to that, letting that woman know that, hey, I don't want to be your boyfriend, I don't want to be your future husband. All I want you as is a fuck buddy. I don't know any guy that was in my circle of friends and acquaintances that ever did that. The only guy I ever saw use like mode 1 type direct verbal game, and more specifically mode 1 hardcore type direct verbal game, was John Leslie's fictional character of Jack in Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2. But as far as in real life, nah. But yeah, because I think this guy who wrote me, he said, Alan, for some reason, I thought you were influenced by some of the most popular pimps, like the street pimps of the 70s and 80s. I thought that's who influenced your direct verbal game style. Nah. I was familiar with a lot of pimps, but nah. No pimps influenced my behavior. No. Again, when it came to scoring casual sex using direct verbal game, my number one influence was John Leslie's fictional character of Jack in Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2. Like, for example, my fraternity. None of my frat brothers used direct verbal game with women. I can't think of any of my frat brothers when I was in college that used like mode 1 type direct verbal game with women. They used one of those other 4 methods. Almost all of my frat brothers who scored casual sex, it was either because they just had women throwing pussy at them, they used some form of mode 3 pump and dump, some form of mode 2 pump and dump, or they got women drunk and or high and took advantage of them, which again now is illegal. That was the main 4 methods that guys used to score. And even most of the white dudes I knew in college, that's how they scored casual sex. It's by one of those 4 methods. By one of those 4 methods. But I didn't know any guy, man, that was just straight up direct with women. That was just verbally bold and verbally direct with women, and just told a woman in their very first conversation, particularly in the first 5 minutes of their first conversation, that basically, hey, I want to fuck you, and I ain't trying to be your boyfriend. I ain't trying to be your husband. I just want to fuck you. I don't want to take you out to the movies. I don't want to take you out to dinner. I don't want to do none of that shit. I just want to fuck you. I would argue say I was the first motherfucker on the campus of Indiana University, Bloomington, Indiana, who was using just hardcore, straight, verbally bold, straight to the point, direct verbal game with women. And that's why my nickname, as y'all know, became The Legend. D-A Legend. That's what a small group of my frat brothers used to call me. They used to call me The Legend. Because I was the only motherfucker on campus IU that was using verbally bold, direct verbal game with women. Again, every other guy was using one of those 4 other methods. The other question I got related to John Leslie, some guy wrote me, I think it was a Patreon subscriber. He just simply asked, he said, Alan, he said, I find it amazing that you were bold enough to emulate a fictional character in a movie. He said, that's like kind of almost mind-boggling. He said, what gave you like the confidence and courage to think that would work in real life? He was like, the type of guy I am, if I would have watched Talk Dirty to Me, or Talk Dirty Part 2, I would have immediately said, oh, that only works because this is a porn movie. It's scripted to work. But that would never work in real life. He said, what made you just simply develop the confidence and courage to say to yourself, I think this can actually work in real life? Well, it's funny he says that, because if you remember my backstory, that's how my brother was. I remember when because the first time I saw the movie, I saw it with my brother and this other guy we knew. And I remember when I watched it, my brother could tell that I was like really enamored by the character of Jack, and that I was taking mental notes. And he was like, I remember my brother was like, first thing he said, I never get, he said, bruh, please don't take this serious. He said, his infamous words at the time where he said, bruh, this would never work in real life. That's exactly what my older brother told me at the time. I was in summer of 1981. He said, bruh, the behavior you see this guy Jack getting away with in this movie, he said that shit would never work in real life. He said, in real life, women would slap the shit out of you if you use an approach like that. He said women would slap the shit out of you, curse you the fuck out, or something similar. He said that shit wouldn't work in no real life. And at the time, I actually agreed with him. I kind of said, yeah, you're probably right. But then, as you know, I ain't going to get into all the long details, but the first turning point was actually verbal seduction story number 1 that I highlight and describe in my book, Who Said Again. Verbal seduction story number 1 was my first turning point. That was the incident. I talked about that at the 21 convention in 2017. I said that was my first major turning point. That's when it was after that triple date in verbal seduction story number 1. That's when I first realized that Mode 1 could work in real life. After I had that triple date experience, that's when I first said to myself, I said, I believe this shit can work in real life. The main thing I think that made me believe it could work in real life, because if you haven't seen Talk Dirty to Me or Talk Dirty to Me Part 2, then you're not going to be able to relate to what I talk about. But, see, here's the thing, man. What's the number one thing most guys are afraid to be really verbally bold and upfront and straightforwardly honest with women and sexually explicit with women? Because they're, number one, they're afraid of rejection. And number 2, they're afraid of just really harsh, negative reactions, adverse reactions. But one of the things you could say that just watching Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2 gave me confidence, because it made me realize, and I've said this a number of times before, that's when I first realized what I now refer to as the sexual duplicity of women. The sexual duplicity of women. Those two movies were the first two movies that made me realize that women were sexually duplicitous. In simple terms, that's when I realized that a lot of women's quote-unquote negative reactions are not 100% genuine. There's some negative reactions you get from women in response to being sexually straightforward with them that are genuine. But then there's a lot of negative reactions you're going to get from women that are what I call fake negative reactions. They're just shit testing you. Women are just shit testing you. They're not really genuinely offended by the things you say. They're not really genuinely turned off by the things you're saying to them. They're acting like they're offended. They're acting like they're insulted. They're acting like they're turned off. If you don't learn anything else from watching Talk Dirty to Me and Talk Dirty to Me Part 2, I would say that's arguably the single biggest thing you learn, more than any other particular lesson you learn from watching those two movies, is that a lot of women's negative reactions when it comes to you talking to them about sex, it is disingenuous. It ain't real. So one of the things that got me addicted to wanting to be Mo One and emulating Jack, well, I wanted to know how many women are just acting like they're turned off by sex talk. How many women are genuinely turned off by sex talk, and how many women out here are acting like they're turned off by it? Which story you think early on, other than next to verbal seduction story number 1, what's the number one story that you should remember that made me a believer in Mo One? That happened within roughly my first year of being Mo One. You should remember, there's at least 3 stories you should remember that took place within the first 2 years. Yeah, within the first 2 years of me being Mo One. The first was the story I described in verbal seduction story number 1. That was the first major story that happened. The third major story that happened was me getting my dick sucked in that grocery store. That was in June. The triple date, that happened in August of 1984. When I got my dick sucked in the grocery store, that happened in June of 1986. And there was one story right in the middle between those two. Right in the middle between those two that I've told at least a half a dozen times. The story with the teacher's assistant, the professor's assistant, where I was Mo One hardcore with this teacher's assistant at Indiana University, and she threatened to have me kicked out of school because I was Mo One hardcore with her. But then a week and a half later, she ended up calling me, and I ended up not only fucking her, but fucking her and one of her girlfriends. I ended up having a threesome after the chick literally cursed me the fuck out. After I had that experience, I was like, oh, I'm onto something. I'm telling you right now. After I had the combination of the triple date story that I described and Ooh Said Again, and number 2, the incident with the teacher's assistant, and then you can say to top it off was me getting my dick sucked in the grocery store, which was a story that made my older brother, a believer in Mo One, and that's when he first suggested that I turn it into a book. Those 3 stories combined, that's when I said, okay, I'm on to something. I said, the shit Jack was doing in those movies, that wasn't just scripted bullshit. That shit is real shit. And now, what, 35 years later, here I am. The godfather of direct verbal game advice. The king of verbal seduction and kinky, erotic, dirty talk. John Leslie. Never got a chance to interview you, but God bless your soul, man.
Yes, sir.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Who's the king?
Alan, you're the king.
Say it again.
Alan, you're the king. You're dominating me.
Say it again.
Alan, you're dominating me right now. Mode 1.
Mode 1.
Daddy, can I go, please? You're the king.
Say it again.
Oh, you're the fucking king. Yes. Yes. Yes.
You're the king, Alan.
AKA the king of verbal seduction. You know, it's the tone of your voice, how seductive your intonations are, the vibrations that you could just reach out over the phone lines and stroke a woman's breast just by the sound of your voice, how you could make her pussy so wet just by the sound of your voice. That's actually very hot.
So you said my show was what?
I said your show is powerful.
Oh, say it again.
Your show is powerful.
But the king would fuck me really good.
Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie.
Oh, yeah. Who's the king?
Alan Roger Currie. The king.
The king.
The king.
I have to agree with you on the communication piece, because I actually did take a session with Alan Roger Currie, and he gave me a line that I did not think was going to work, and it worked. And I was like, what the fuck?
Oh my God!
God, man, he's the master. He's the master of the verbal seduction. He got that communication piece down pat.
It really worked.
Yeah.
It just simply worked, and I just didn't think it was going to work at all.
Some guys have natural handles. Some guys have a better natural shot, but you can always improve your shot. And sex is damn sure something you can fucking learn. Look, dude, you want to learn how to talk better? I'm hiring Alan Roger Currie to get my dirty talk game on, because it's always been something I want to get better at.
Verbal seduction, man. I'm like, clearly, this guy's the Michael Jordan of seduction. Like, come on now.